Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? It's Matt from YoVideogames, and it's time to boil down our very best of 2014. We've talked about the bananas, now let's talk about the sex. And we're of course talking about the best game of 2014, and that's Bayonetta 2. If you're at all familiar with this channel, then you know that me and Max are huge fans of the action genre, of classic Sega games, and Bayonetta 2 was actually a combination of both, as it came from a bunch of ex-Capcom employees that created the Devil May Cry series, and by association that whole sort of subgenre of action games for the PS2 era, and then joined up with Sega and released Bayonetta as their follow-up. Sadly, because of the gaming population's growing aversion to quality, the series never quite took off to the heights it really should have, and it seemed like Bayonetta 2 was lost forever. Thankfully, there was a company called Nintendo that, even though it fell well out of their general target demographics, realized that quality was more important than anything and came in, snatched up the sequel rights, and made sure that they were going to fund Bayonetta 2, and even though they announced it maybe a bit too early, it finally has come out all around the world now, and we can finally bask in the glory that is Bayonetta 2. One of the best action games of all time, period. So what makes Bayonetta 2 so great as opposed to the first game? Even though the first game now does come with Bayonetta 2 and has a bunch of cool bonus costumes. Well, first of all, let's talk about visuals. Bayonetta 2 is a much more colorful game than the first Bayonetta, and this actually really stands out if you play them back to back. Bayonetta 2 dazzles with all kinds of incredible set pieces, and more than just that, it has some of the most insane boss fights you have ever seen. The first time you fight with the Lumen Sage is absolutely bonkers. Now, of course, the frame rate isn't a solid 60 frames per second because of it, but it's still fast and fluid enough that you don't mind too much. And oh my god, the escalation from fighting on foot to fighting in the air to like taking control of humongous giant like summons, it's unbelievable. This is what video games are all about. This is what the action genre was made for. Now, what makes Bayonetta so great if you aren't familiar with it exactly? Well, I call it the rewarding gameplay. Now, the Devil May Cry games are very similar to Bayonetta, but they have a key difference, and that is the Devil May Cry games, they don't reward you for doing well, but rather they punish you for doing poorly. Bayonetta 2 is very different in that respect, where it rewards you for skill. Now, what exactly do I mean by this? In Bayonetta 2, if you dodge perfectly, you are rewarded with a slow motion effect, which lets you wail on your enemy. By paying attention to the enemy's attacks and dodging at just the right second, the game rewards the player for it. In Devil May Cry, if you fuck up, you get hurt bad. There's no reward for doing well in Devil May Cry other than just beating the enemies. Now, this is something that kind of divides the fan base very slightly. Some people don't feel they want any reward. Doing well is its own reward in their minds, and for Bayonetta, it's a little too easy. I fall more in the Bayonetta 2 camp because I really like being rewarded for good gameplay, and I don't like really being punished because I barely missed a dodge timing. That being said, they are very similar otherwise in their combo structure and their gameplay structure, and I think if you really like Devil May Cry, you got to play this game. We don't even know if Capcom will ever truly return to the Devil May Cry series. Yeah, we're getting a special edition of 4, but come on, that's no guarantee of Devil May Cry 5. In the meantime, play Bayonetta 2. You'll really like it, even if you do feel that you shouldn't be rewarded for doing good. As for the specific things Bayonetta 2 itself does better than the first game, it fixes a lot of issues. The first game had some pretty cool homages to Outrun and Afterburner, but however, those levels went on a very long time. In 2, when you get these sort of unique experiences or Afterburner Easter egg levels, they're much shorter, they're much better paced, they're much faster. So the very small nitpicks that were in Bayonetta 1 have been ironed out in 2, and all that we're left with is basically the perfect action game. All the way through, from start to finish, Bayonetta 2 is a joy to play, and you don't want to put the controller down, and that's just the mark of a great game. Speaking of Easter eggs, Bayonetta 2 ups the ante by a lot. There is, of course, still plenty of Sega-inspired Easter eggs, as they are the IP holder and their name is on the box, but since this is a Nintendo-funded sequel, we get a shit ton of Nintendo love in this game. That goes for costumes, that goes for weapons, and that goes for an endgame Easter egg that is so fucking good, it melted down the internet when it was revealed. It is something I won't say here, but if you followed our channel, watched our playthrough, you know exactly what we're talking about, and it is just fucking amazing. Bayonetta 2 is the complete package. It has an online co-op if you want to join in with friends. It's got a ton of replayabilities, a shit ton of unlockables, some really fucking hard secret bosses. It's got it all. If you love the action genre, this is probably the best game in it. Now that's debatable, of course, but I think you could definitely put it on a pantheon surrounded by all the other games that you might consider just as good or better than Bayonetta 2. Regardless, this is a 10 out of 10 game. This is a game everyone should own. It's a little sad that not enough people are buying it. If you're a Wii owner, you should own this game. I don't even care if you're 5, you should own it. It's the best game on the system right now. You gotta go out, you gotta play, you gotta buy. And hey, you get 2 games for 1. It's the best deal of the year. So all in all, this wraps up the best of 2014 for me. Bayonetta 2 is my top pick of the year. I feel Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is a more personal favorite of mine, but the two together are a glorious combination of bananas and sex. I really, really wish I had the artistic and rendering capabilities to make some sort of trophy that encapsulated bananas and sex. Maybe like Bayonetta riding on a giant banana, or maybe like Donkey Kong and Bayonetta are like together or something like that. But unfortunately, I don't have any sort of artistic capabilities. But if you do, hey, feel free to show us your trophy making skills. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll catch you later on the channel. Later, dudes.